Hello, welcome to Dissident Canada. My name is Tyler. I am back. I am alive. I did eventually have to go to the doctor for what was going on, so that's that's great. Uh, but I'm back. I have follow up appointments with the doctor. Some are planned, some are not. So there may or may not be some upcoming disruptions, but it should be back to normal. I am not 100%. I still feel pretty trash, but that is what it is. I am feeling well enough to do this. So, today I'm going to talk about the partisans at Con Inc., who, like most people, can't think past their nose. I'm not going to name them by name because, like, what's the point? All right, it start needless internet drama over me being absolutely correct. They're unable to uh, understand a system and look at the fact that it's not a local government's problem to a large extent. It is a global issue. Even with, countries that are doing things differently, they still going to have problems. What I'm talking about is on Friday, I got inundated with Con Inc. on X going hard on Carney, which I, I'm not here to defend Carney because I think he's doing a terrible job. I just try to understand where he's coming from because, he's kind of the guy in charge. And if you can understand his thought process, you can make accurate predictions and you can then deal with what's going on. He is a prick. But the way you go after him, you have to be smart to bring down the support for a government. Like, it's not hard to understand that. But, anyways, Friday, jobs report comes out. We lost 40,000 jobs last month. I'm pretty sure it was last month. Give me some grace. I'm still catching up on stuff and memory's a little foggy still. But okay, that's abysmal. All right, we don't have a trade deal with America. We don't have any new pipelines yet. We don't have any announcements for infrastructure projects. Whole lot of grift going on and nothing getting done. Obviously horrible. Don't get me wrong. It's terrible. But to say like the jobs loss and just the state of the Canadian economy is bad because of Carney, well, you can just pull up any metric over the last few years and be like, well, we've been going down for 3 years. Okay, sure, Carney's been in office, or not in office, as an advisor for at least that long. Okay, but this is globally synchronized. Like, I've been saying this now for almost 2 years on at least the Rumble channel. YouTube peeps, you can hop over there at any point in time and verify that if you want. Been saying that for like 3 years on my X account, and I've been and I've gone through the data, and like this period of downwardness is not new. Like the 2010s were at best stalled growth, net zero, although it was really net negative. Early 2000s, similar situation. It wasn't as bad, but it was basically net zero. Like, it's a continuation of downward growth for decades. And you want to lay that at Carney's fault? Carney hasn't been in charge for all that time. Like, even when you look at the Canadian dollar USD trade and you go, like, Carney gets into office somewhere around, 2013? Okay. We had already come down off and when I say office, I mean Bank of Canada office. He was the governor of Bank of Canada. We'd already come down off of the highs, and yeah, we went back into this. We were going into this slow downward and then trading sideways that we have basically done for 10-ish years now. Like, but so have other currencies. Like, this isn't just a Canadian thing. This is globally synchronized. And if you look at the problem of, oh, this is just Canada, we get it a conservative in there, like Pierre. Although, remember, Pierre was running basically as Carney when it came to the trade deals and everything. It was just Orange Man bad. I don't do this or do this, but Orange Man bad. We can't acquiesce to Donald Trump. Orange Man bad. Like, that's what he did. It's just a fucking puppet. Tell me if Pierre would have done a better job negotiating. Like, he can't come out and take charge of a single issue and definitively stick to it and run on it, all right? Like, when he was running in the leadership race, he came out, I wouldn't say libertarian, but in that general direction, let's say more populist, promoting cryptos, being heavily into Bitcoin, like those, that kind of rhetoric, and then campaign disappeared. Like, you really think Pierre, who can on a dime swap like any politician does on whatever and say the complete opposite the next day, like, he's not going to do better. Like, again, we look at the economy, all right? You want to tell me it's Carney's fault that Canada's economy is going down. All right. But the background mechanics of what's happening, specifically in the banking system, in the financial system, well, you can see that in the UK, everywhere in the EU, heavily in China, specifically in Hong Kong, Japan, the United States, South Korea. You can see it in those other Asian countries that are heavily financialized. So Carney's responsible for all that. This global synchronization is Carney's fault. No, I understand he is responsible for some of it, as I said earlier. Like, it's no, but when you're dealing with a heavily globalized system, when you have a synchronous activities taking place in the banking system specifically, when banks start to get scared and stop lending into the real economy in any real numbers, say less than what is required to service the debt in the real economy, which is again where goods and services are produced, of course you're going to see a global slowdown. If they get scared and they start dumping money into, hedge funds, which they've been doing, this is what you get. Like, people are, at least Con Inc. in Canada is comparing it to what's going on in the United States and being like, oh yeah, Trump is making the economy roaring hot. And it's like, no, we're still in, I think, year 2 or 3 of downward revisions of the jobs report for the United States. The FOMC meetings getting grimmer and grimmer when you actually read into them, and you read the beige books and everything like that. We're at that, like, in the United States, it very much seems like this September will mirror what happened, or this September going forward to the end of the year will mirror what happened in 2008 to a large degree. And you're telling me it's Carney's fault? Like, that's my problem, right? Have the Liberals done damage to Canada? Yes. Have they created economic distortions and destroyed Canadians' lives? Absolutely. They should be torn apart for that. But to think the entirety of the Canadian economy right now is 100% Carney's fault is laughable. Should I then say that the state of the Canadian economy in 2009, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and the little bit in 15 that Harper was prime minister, should I blame it on Harper? When again, it was a globally synchronized event that was happening in the Eurodollar system, in the financial system, in the banking system. Like, could they have done better and helped insulate Canada to a greater degree? Absolutely. But there's only so much you can do because of the way money moves. Like, the only reason China sees any amount of growth is one, because they cook the books like there's no tomorrow, and two, it's smoke and mirrors. Like, most of the Chinese economy is being gassed, or was being gassed, by real estate. But when the real estate is garbage, doesn't make many money, and is heavily leveraged, you've got a bubble. Can you make a lot of money in a bubble when it goes before it pops? Absolutely, but you got to get out before it pops. It's kind of what you're seeing now in China. Is you're seeing foreign investors leave China because you've got a bubble. And again, the only reason why foreign investors went into China is because they were pushed into China. China looked like the only place that was getting growth once Xi took over, because again, he was cooking the books and did all this financial smoke and mirrors magic that gave you the illusion of real growth, when in reality, it's not so good. Like, you're talking about, for the populace itself, I think it's less than 2% growth of their annual, say, paycheck. When you actually factor everything in, it's horrendous. When you discount the party officials that get rich and the Chinese billionaires, China's economy is just wrecked. Now, if you wanted to say the state of the Chinese economy is largely Xi's fault, we can go there, because the amount of totalitarianism in that country is insane, and absolutely there is a degree of that. But again, the only reason why the Chinese economy was gassed, is because of the state of the rest of the world. Investors needed somewhere to park their money to get a return, and Chinese real estate looked, at least on the surface, good, but everybody knew it was a bubble. They're just now regretting being in the bubble. Or at least some of them are starting. I mean, they started in 2023, but, you know, I would very much, if I was in China in any way, I'd want to be out. Like, pick a statistic that you want, all right? A Canadian statistic that has to do with the economy. Compare it to any country of your so choosing in the West. Tell me if that supposed Western country is doing better. Now, again, Canada may be at the bottom of the barrel of Western countries, all right? Someone's always got to be at the bottom. But when you compare trends of whatever statistic you want, you'll see it's fairly synchronized. Now, I would refuse to compare, like, if you're doing those statistics, don't do currencies, because there are other reasons why currencies move other than, you know, the health of a domestic economy. Like, the dollar moves due to need. Like, the US dollar right now, after its, you know, downward trend to what I think it hit 95, and now it's slowly tracking its way back up into the 100 on the DXY. The reason it's doing that is because of the mechanics of US debt outside of America, not because the American economy is doing well. It's very similar to how I said earlier in the year when the Canadian dollar was gaining back, what the drop off was, and where when the euro was also going up, it wasn't because the economies in those countries were doing well. It was background mechanics of the euro dollar. And, and in doing so, like, I think the worst part of the jump to do the blame game without doing the research and zooming out and being like, oh, this is a global problem. How do we fix this? Like, that's the real issue. Is, okay, we have a globally synchronized problem. How do we fix this? Because if you look right now, okay, if we're again, if we're going into a recessionary environment, do you want to over leverage, say, energy resources that aren't going to be used because no one's buying? Now, do you want to invest in them for the upswing? Absolutely. Now would be the time to think about investing, but not to fundamentally over leverage those resources, because you over invest in them and say you get 2-3 years of downward swing in price with specifically oil, which looks like we will. Now you've got a debt problem and you've created a bigger issue. Like, uh, like Bitcoin right now is recovering, as I said it would, as we got closer to that September, October, 2 weeks in September, 2 weeks in October month time frame, where there is a seasonal liquidity shortage that is historic, that goes predates fiat currency. It like, you can see this in, hundreds of years of data. There is a liquidity shortage here, and what I told you is Bitcoin seems in the last few years has a historic trend to go up in this time frame, and it appears to be Bitcoin is being leveraged somewhere in the financial system as either collateral or something else due to a shortage of dollar liquidity. I like I take a nuanced approach, because when you dig down into things, it's never as easy as black and white. There are infinite shades of gray for things. And when you look at the economy, specifically after globalization, there's a lot of inputs that you have to factor. The largest one being the Eurodollar system. So, should Carney take, how would I put this? If Carney was a good leader, he'd be saying, yes, I have not done a great job so far, I will do better. And then lay out a plan and actually have a plan. He's not going to, because he's not really a leader. He's a banker, and he's going to treat this as a banking problem, or as a central bank problem, which is even worse than treating it as a banking problem. Because if you at least treat it as a banking problem, you're on the right track. I mean, it's more complicated than that, because you the negative feedback loop that's in there, multiple negative feedback loops that are in there. But if you treat it as a central banker problem, now you're going to create economic distortions that just, smear shit all over the problem. So, extremely nuanced tank. Does Carney contribute to the problem? Yes. Is Carney the problem? No. Do the Liberals contribute to the problem? Yes. Are they the problem? No. Because there are global macro factors. And if you've been watching Snyder, as I always recommend, or George Gammon, or Brett Johnson, or name 100 other, or a couple dozen other people that understand global macro, does not give a flying F about governments, You understand this, that it is more complicated than, you know, whatever political tribe you subscribe as the bad guy. It's their fault. If that were true, Hungary's economy would look better than most of the EU. Now, does it relatively look better? Yes. Is Hungary like going through an economic boom while Germany goes through a recession? No. Like, Europe is a great example because you have all these different flavors of different types of populist adjacent stuff and popular and globalist and all these different, flavors of political styles, and yet they're all on the same track. Government don't matter when the euro dollar decides to have a hiccup, and this looks to be quite a large hiccup. Anyways, that was just bugging me all weekend. I needed to talk about it. So, videos coming up. I want to talk about AI. I want to talk about the siloing of content because that seems to be ramping up yet again. I do want to talk about AI. I want to talk about what Carney specifically is doing with the trade deal, but we'll see what happens throughout the week. Till tomorrow, have a good day.